In the last class, I was speaking about man and environment, and I was telling about how both man and environment are very closely linked with each other. And when there is any impact on environment, and environment reacts, and ultimately the human beings become the victim of all this environmental reaction. And I have told you that when, if you look into this, the human process of evolution, when there is no such scarcity of the resources, the human being was freely moving in the forest for their own resources. And during the time, the requirement was quite minimal. And with the rise of the population, when the requirement got increased, the human being started searching for more and more resources, and then started also developing certain kind of techniques for acquiring and procuring those resources. So which started a process of innovation, also at the same time the struggle over resources, because when we found that human being started uh, extracting the resources, so then the real problem started, but which was very negligible during that period. But in course of time, it becomes highly essential, and its real repercussion is being observed. See, today whatever is happening, even in the if you look into this, even the recent pandemic, for the last 1 year, we are all inside the house and all. If you look into this, now the lots of studies are on the pipeline to come off the impact of COVID-19 on environment. Means how now the environment is getting back its reality. It is becoming clean, it is becoming green, and the oxygen level has increased, the air pollution has gone down, the animals are quite happy, and the pressure of humans and environment is drastically reduced. So sometimes what we feel, we also feel that this kind of situation might have uh, uh, created by the environment to maintain a balance. Because whenever we always tell that the disease and all these things are human made. No doubt, everything is human made, because whether directly or indirectly, when we bring certain kind of destruction to the environment, obviously environment reacts. And when environment reacts, it reacts in a different forms, in a different way, whose reality is reflected in a different form. And the repercussion has to be borne by the human beings. Because it is the human being who has destroyed the environment. So if I am the culprit who has destroyed the environment, has to bear the cost of this environment. But only it matters that it might be not the all who has destroyed the environment, rather few might have destroyed the environment, but the repercussion has to be shared by everybody, because the peoples you look into in the contemporary days, Now, in the name of development, in the name of urban livings, all these human beings are now migrating from the rural to urban areas. And when they're migrating from the rural to urban areas, they are setting it off at the urban areas and the unnecessarily, because if you look at every city has its own bearing capacity. I don't know whether you are aware or not, but when we plan a city, we always plan a city that as per its, man, looking into 30 years, 50 years, 100 years, its bearing capacity. But what is happening in the contemporary days is we never expected all of a sudden everybody will have an inclination to migrate to the urban area, and the bearing capacity of all the cities are uh, saturated, for which now the you'll see that different crises are coming up in the urban areas, and among them you will find that there is a huge water crisis, and ultimately the air pollution, water crisis, and all these things are coming up, and ultimately the all the peoples living there real the sufferers, and the peoples who migrated past, who encroach the urban lands, who become the rich community in the urban areas, are now moving towards the rurals. And where they're moving towards the rural, are they're not exactly moving towards the rural, but again developing a new concept of survival, that is farmhouse. Means how the human being from the time to time developing a new tendency for its own survival. What they're doing, they have money, so now exactly they're not living in the urban area, they're little bit trying to go away from the urban area, and again acquiring more and more lands and setting up their houses there and renamed it as a farmhouse. We have left the farm, we have left the farms and for urban life, and we have back to the urban, and now we want to teach others that no, we have to go back to the again the rural, but exactly not the rural, but in between, where I can approach to the urban facility of education, health, and transport, where I can survive, where I can have an easy access. I'm choosing an area where I can have an easy access to fulfill my requirements. So means this is a new kind of thinkings, new kind of tendency is being developed by human beings. But you see, if you uh, what exactly in between the human beings is doing? Human being, if you look at the in traditional days, in the traditional society, when the science and technology was not so developed, and the human interference to the environment was quite limited. The reaction from the environment was also very limited, and the repercussion of environmental pollution was quite limited, and the human one quite well in their survival modes. But you see, when our needs becomes greeds, and when we started extracting more and more resources in the name of adopting the new technologies, then the real problem started. Every day, new innovations are coming up. We want to extract more and more resources, because if you, I'll just give an example. Suppose you see, earlier we used to suppose extract this much ton minerals every day. Suppose take an example of coal. Suppose we had a target earlier. We had target suppose 10 ton. Suppose a particular industry was having a target that okay 10 million ton coal should be extracted per day, but now suppose it has gone up to 30. And how they'll do that? Because they have adapted not just human beings are only engaged. Rather, they have adopted the new technology, new resources happening, new innovation is coming up, new technology they're adopting for extraction of more and more resources. And the intention is that how more resource can be extracted and its proper utilization can be done to fulfill the interest of present generation. We are not thinking about the future one right now, though we are speaking about always future sustainable development, fulfilling the interest of what exactly we are telling. Sustainable development means meeting the requirement of the present generation without compromising the needs of the future. But are we really trying to fulfill the needs of the future generation? Because we are always enjoying the present, because human being is thinking the present is the golden era, and I never know about the future. I have forgotten about my past. What my grandfathers fathers did, I never want to bother about that. Rather I want to survive, rather I want to extract the resources. And if you look into by nature, the human being is becoming more and more selfish, and they are only bothered about their own survival. They're not bothered about the survival of others. Then when we are not bothered about the survival of its own family members, how come he will bother about the survival of the environment? Means everybody thinks that the nature is a free gift and we should extract. The farmers are demanding also for free electricity, free waters, and what ultimately is happening means whoever the power, whoever has money, can extract the groundwater as much as possible, can pump out the surface water for its own agricultural land. So what ultimately I wants to plant a tree, that how the rainfall will come, how the water will come in a natural way. Rather, I am only worried about whatever the resources being available, how to extract those resources for my own survival and getting maximum benefit out of it. I have forgotten, the human being has forgotten that the earlier Indian society was so inclined towards worshipping the moon, worshipping the sun, worshipping the earth, worshipping the hill, the tree. For what they were worshipping? For the benefits of the society, for the benefits of everybody, for the benefits of this entire world. But in reality, in the contemporary days, all these things are missing in our day-to-day life. If you unfold our mantras, tantras in India, you'll find that our mantras, tantras, everything has a sense of respecting to the kind of to the contributors who really helps us for our survival. So we are only praising them, we are only appreciating them, nothing else. So and the question arises in the contemporary days, if the human being is so much greedy, if the human being is every time trying to innovate new and new technologies and trying to extract the resources, so can human being controls the environment? If yes, then why human being is not able to control the tsunami, earthquake, floods, and industrial accidents? No, it is not happening because the human being is forgetting that it has its own limited control. It has its own limited power. It is for human being is forgetting that even though I develop uh, new technologies, even though I am develop new science, new knowledge and all, but still my knowledge is less than the environment. My knowledge is being controlled again by the environment, because the environment behaves on its own way. It is not that I can control the environment. So that means when human being is unnecessarily thinking that I am more powerful than the environment and adopting the Western philosophy that man is above the nature, has really felt disappointed and felt helpless because he's not able to overcome from all these problems. See, do human beings makes machine or machine makes humans? Who makes whom? Means it is the human being who has made the machine. It is not that machine has made the human beings. See, now I am teaching through our, suppose, computer. It is not that computer will operate on its own. Rather, the human being has to give certain commands to operate. And as per my command, the computer will operate. So that means here you see, I am only using the machine to fulfill my interest because machine has no emotion, machine has no thinking capacity, means whatever instruction the human being is giving to the machine is doing that. Machine is not overpowerful than humans, means we cannot redesign the machine which will behave like we are we are developing means now robot and everything and to help us during different periods. But does robots is having a sense of emotion? No. Robots means whatever the knowledge, whatever the, suppose we have developed a tendency that robots are sharing their emotional. No, it is whatever the knowledge we have incorporated, we have built up in that robot. So he has sense up to that only. Beyond that, it has no sense. So that's why what I'm telling that it's not the machine which makes us as a human, rather human being has makes something as a machine. So that's why it is the responsibility of the human beings to guide the machines in such a way that the extraction of the resources should be in a limited form. It should not be go beyond that. Because if you look in the context of development, because we always are taking an excuse in the name of development, wherever we asked what is the need of extraction of resources, what is the need of cutting down. You see, now you look into that we are always destroying the roadside plants. We are always destroying the thousands and thousands hectares of forest areas in the name of industry. So we'll debate all these things in the future course of classes. But usually, when we are destroying the thousand hectares and hectares of forest lands in the name of industry, we have always a justification that we want development. But the question is, development in what sense? Development for whom? Development for what? Have we ever thought what would the repercussion of this? Is it the development destroying the forest? Is it the development destroying the environment? Is it the development inviting the pollution? Is it the development taking out the resource of future generations? So what is the meaning of development for us? So if the development, if we are not in a position to define the development, if we are not in a position to say that this is the development, then how come we'll think about the development? Because we are not having the knowledge to redefine the development. See, now you look into the various parts of this world, wherever any industry is coming up, people are protesting. Lots of agitation is continuing throughout the globe. Different communities having different demands. We are not understanding their emotional attachment to their local environments. We have a power. The ruling party is using its own machinery, that is police force, and we are always in thinking about as a society with capitalistic approach. We always give an emphasis on capitalist, and we always give emphasis on high class. We always think about the survival of ours, not the survival of others. So we, because if you will see that, so there what is happening, we are keep on extracting the resources. In spite of agitations, we are trying to suppress the voice of others. So then, here means our perception of development is different than the perception of development of poor peoples, the peoples who are victimized, the peoples who are going to the real uh, victims of this development. Because it is not that it is not that the people are uh, able to get the fruits of development. Rather, the fruits of development is limited to the very specific society, very specific group of people. Rather, the mass is being victimized. So, no doubt, when we are bringing in a development, definitely some will be the victims. But how to minimize this victimization? That should be the major approach of development. It's not that we want the development and we'll have a only a kind of pressure so that the things cannot be done. So that's why it is high time to redefine, to relocate the man and environment relationship and try to convince the uh, um, human beings that what was the traditional relationship that of humans with their local environment, how closely human being was attached to the environment, uh, the history of environment and the history of human beings, how the human beings was dealing with the environment for its own survivals, how what kind of different festivals and uh, rituals the human being used to celebrate to keep the environment more and more safer for their own survival, and how the human's philosophy was closely associated with the nature for its own survival. It is high time we should redefine, relocate, relink those relationships through that means the relationship between human and environment can be established in a better way, and both can cooperate each other for the survival of humans and the environment. Because human beings should not forget that any harm to the environment ultimately will have the negative repercussion on human beings, and it will have a very difficult in the part of human beings to survive. So that's why the human being should come forward and always work for the clean and green environment and to work for reviving the traditional philosophy of managing the environment, because it needs now the environmental education should be also imparted at every grassroots level, school, colleges, and all. I hope you all might have studied some papers on environment while uh, a non-credit paper to all of you. So because it is highly essential to come, but in all of our part, but we should act. It is not that simply listening and not doing, because this is the major problem in throughout the globe. We speak something, do something, we learn something, but didn't implement in our day-to-day life. So that is the major problem we have. So this is overall about the environment and development. Anybody any doubt, you can ask now. Hello.
No, sir.